This is typical left-wing tactics.
So is it? I mean, I think this was pretty predictable, Charles. You saw on Twitter a lot of people rushing to judgment. Yeah. The same people that hesitate using the phrase Islamic terrorism were very quick to use the term Christian.
You're absolutely right. In fact, Harris and I both, we covered this live on Friday. And, you had to walk a very thin line, obviously. And, you knew Planned Parenthood was there, but there were other businesses there. You kind of figured it was centered on this. And as soon as that was the case, people were tweeting me the definitions of terrorism and those kind of things. But, when I listened to what Hillary said, from what I understand, people have an opposition, particularly some of the politicians, Republican politicians running for the White House, to the idea of taxpayers funding Planned Parenthood and abortion. They're not saying, hey, listen, the courts have ruled, perhaps they'll rule again in the future. They're not saying, and you don't have to like abortion, but they're saying there's no way in the world that taxpayer money should be used for that, particularly when they're talking about selling baby parts. And that's neither one, Bernie Sanders or Hillary, those clips we saw, both very disingenuous. And that's what stokes these flames of hatred and anger.
And it was quite the leap, too, as you point out, to talk about a shooting and then link that somehow to women not being able to get abortions. Harris, you were on this story from the minute it broke in the Fox News desk, and you stayed with me. I know you stayed with Charles. I was filling in for Greta Van Susteren, and when you and I were doing the news, they got the guy. But at the same time, I'm waiting to go on air. But Paris, they were not releasing information, and yet people had already jumped to conclusions, and they were indicting an entire religion, Christian, white, Republican, before we even got details.
And then you had what I consider kind of the reflexive for Democrats. They've shown that they'll talk about gun control almost immediately, so you had that as part of the conversation, too.
Well, I was just going to say that the pro-life movement is a nonviolent movement. I mean, by definition, it's about finding nonviolent solutions.
It's about life.
It's about finding nonviolent solutions to unplanned or difficult pregnancies. So it's very cynical for them to tie that to the movement. And in fact, the officer who saved those lives happened to be pro-life himself. I think we make no mistake. I think this is about the upcoming hearings that are coming on the investigation on Planned Parenthood. And they're deeply embarrassed about these videos. It pulled the curtain on what really happens in those back rooms of the abortion clinics. And that's what this is about. They want to muzzle us.
Well, and Sandra, it seemed like the left was saying, do not speak ill. You're not allowed to voice your opinion about the illegal, I should say, harvesting of baby parts on the off chance that some lunatic out there might hear that rhetoric and decide to go shoot up at a clinic. To me, it was such a bizarre but yet predictable jump for them. Well, now they've jumped to the conclusion, Charles, and it's political season, and this checks 3 boxes for liberals, right? Instead of going after Islamic terrorism, they can try and say that there's now this ongoing threat of Christian terrorism. They can talk about gun control. They can talk about abortion, their favorite issues. But how can you conflate a murderous cult, Islamic cult, terrorizing the Middle East and the United States and any Western country, and some crazy man?
Well, they're terrorizing the world. The other side of this, guys, what about Harris when they brought in those military-style vehicles to help get those people to safety? We're talking about disarming our police. We're talking about demilitarizing our police because it's not right for them to have those kind of things.
He was shooting at police officers.
And also, what if more people had guns there, guys? What if people could have defended themselves?
It may have been a different outcome.
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk about that.